So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our final webinar for 2024. We truly appreciate you all and the support you have shown us this year. Today, we are honored to have Corey Agao. She's the Heart Gallery of Texas Director, Erin Argue, Heart Galleries of Texas Associate Director, Kara Fox, the Heart Galleries of Texas Program Director, and Erica Settles, the Permanency Training Coordinator for the Heart Galleries of Texas. We're very excited to hear what they will share about the Heart Galleries of Texas progress and updates. If you have any questions throughout the session, please feel free to use the chat and I will be monitoring. So if those questions, I'll make sure that they get asked at the end. And so I don't want to take up any more time. So please go ahead, take it away. Thank you all for joining us today.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Erica Settles, and I am the permanency trainer. And just to move into the presentation, our training objectives today are to learn about the development of regional heart galleries across the state of Texas, to increase our understanding of Heart Galleries of Texas post-permanency training and supports provided to professionals and caregivers across the state of Texas, and to find out how Heart Galleries of Texas will be supporting families through post-permanency efforts.
Okay, so we're going to start off by covering what is a heart gallery. And I see several of our regional heart galleries on here, so this will be old news for y'all, obviously. But for anyone who is not familiar, we have some photographs for you. If Cassandra or Erica, if you would flip the slide. Heart galleries are basically a photo exhibit, portrait exhibits that illuminate the spirit and individuality of children in foster care who are waiting to be adopted. So I love this visual because you can see that we've got the portraits and then underneath it, next slide, please. You will see that we have some strengths-based narratives that tell us a little bit about each child. They're storytelling tools that talk about what kinds of families would be a good match for the children, what kinds of families they're looking for. And so our goal here is to help connect kids with prospective adoptive families. Next slide. Heart galleries are really a starting point. The photo is the starting point. They are a way for us to tell the child's story and more intentionally engage the community in trying to learn about all ways that they can support kids in foster care. If it's not, if adoption isn't for them, then we also talk about other ways that we can engage in supporting these children. So it's very much a storytelling tool. Heart galleries were started in 2001 out of New Mexico by a foster adopt recruiter, and there are currently more than 125 heart gallery chapters in 47 states. So this is a national initiative. It's not unique to Texas, and heart galleries are successful, but they're typically very grassroots efforts. And they kind of have just varying levels of quality depending upon who in the community is running them and what kind of sustainability has been built. And so here in Texas, we've had a unique opportunity to approach our heart galleries a little bit more strategically, and Corey is going to tell you more about what that looks like.
So thank you, Kara. One of the things that has been happening in Texas and really quite honestly across the state is what's called adoption resource exchanges. Ours is called TARE, and that is where photos of children that are available for adoption through foster care in the state of Texas, traditionally the caseworker would just snap a shot of them, and 9 times out of 10, just not a really great picture of the child. And they were put on the website to then and with some information. And it was truly developed to be a way for families to get more information on the child. And that ended up not necessarily being the case, because as we all know, caseworkers are so very busy in just the day-to-day of the work that they had to do, that responding and having really quick access to that information was not always there. And that was also a lot of the reason we started to look at the Heart Gallery program, because Heart Galleries just really do go a step beyond that. So we will work with TARE, but then we go and get professional photographers, as Kara mentioned, to take these photos. So they're beautiful photos. We make the experience of taking the photos a great one for the child or youth. They get to engage in something that's an activity that they enjoy. We help with the bios for the kids. And then we utilize those portraits in exhibits in the community to better engage a community. So it's just taking a picture and really giving the more personality to the child. So that's where these art galleries really in the state of Texas had started to begin to flourish. And that idea in Central Texas is where it started. There were art galleries across the state 10 years ago, but in Central Texas, they really had dedicated some funds from the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation to hire staff and to really dedicate time to do that. And both Aaron and I had the honor of working with that program for 10 years. So we have a lot of experience with that and what works and what didn't work. And one of the things we developed a ton of statistics around the effectiveness of a art gallery and exhibits and that type of program to engage communities. And there are two different types of things. So one of the pitches that I had to do and really do a deep dive into how many exhibits we had out in a particular month, how many clicks to the website, how many families did we have engaged in information sessions. And after doing months and months and months of deep dive research, found that the months that we had higher number of exhibits out in the community, we had a significant increase in visits over the months after that, and also increased number of people that were going to information sessions. And not necessarily that is a causation, but there were a lot of times in surveys that we did from families that attended information sessions, a lot of them came back that they found out about it from a art gallery, either event or seeing a art gallery, going to the website or seeing something on television. So we really did know that recipe was successful in getting the word out and helping with recruitment for families to look at taking that next step. And in addition to that, Region 7, which is Central Texas, year over year for the past decade, had a 22% higher adoption rate than the rest of the state. So these are the numbers that we found and were able to get, as you all know, the funding from this last legislative session. So we can go to the next slide. We were able to take those funds, which was great, and we were thrilled to do it, and have now selected and launched. I mean, we haven't had formal launch events for all 11 regions, but all 11 regions have identified the nonprofit organization that will be running the art gallery program, which is wonderful. So what we're doing now, they're up and running. We're helping them with staffing and websites, and then now committees and getting photographers, how to engage photographers, communication and referral systems from the department and from their local SSCC, just all of the things that go into place. And there are a lot of moving parts. So the vision for the remainder of this year is to keep that going. And all regions are in different places. All regions require different things. They're all really take very strategic and specific help from and assistance from the Art Galleries of Texas team. We also provide statewide support. It's wonderful that the funding went through the University of Texas. And so we have our team here and a training team, an evaluation team, a marketing team that's wonderful that we can pull on. But we also have an incredible partnership with Texas Alliance, who is a member organization that also has all of these contacts in the space of foster care and adoption. So these teams are here to provide peer support, really best practices. And because Kara meets with all of the art galleries, she can share, oh, this region's doing this and this one, that. So we're ensuring that we're communicating and working together effectively. So everything is consistent across the state, which is quite honestly one of the main things both the legislators and also caseworkers and case managers were saying that they wanted, was they just needed some more consistency on our recruiting efforts across the state. And then finally, Aaron's going to talk a little bit more in detail, but we all realized early on in Central Texas when we took this on that if we were not supporting the family post-adopt, that we were failing the children that we were recruiting for in the stages of the art gallery. We can't be doing this work and have the kids come back into the art gallery a year later and just with more trauma. And that was just not really going to work for any of us. So it was exciting that we were able to use so much of the funding for post-adopt supports, and really the future of that funding is going to be focused on that. And we're excited about those pieces as well. Next slide. I will not go through these. And I mean, these are the main things we've done, but in each of them, I feel like that there's subcategories for all of them, and it's exhausting to look at, but there's a lot that's been going on. We'll send you, I was gonna say, we can send the slides over and you can look at them in more detail, but it's been a busy year and it's been a great year, and we're thrilled with how everything has turned out. And really, I will say, a lot of the things going into this early on, collaboration with the department and collaboration with working with CPAs and worrying about some of that was some of our biggest concerns going in, and it has not been a problem. We've been thrilled with the amount of excitement from the other organizations that are doing some of the post-adopt work, the excitement around caseworkers, case managers, our post-adopt contracted providers, and them wanting to be more engaged. It's really picked up a lot of steam and everyone is very much on board. So a lot of it's been exciting in the sense that we're working together. None of this is any isolated or siloed group or organization. We're all in this together. So these are just some of the activities. Again, quite a few of them are missing, but it's been a lot of fun, and different people have had a part in all of this. So it's been great. Here are our 11 heart galleries. I don't need to really spend all that much time on this, but I think one of the neat things in the call this morning is every region is unique. Some of these areas, Mary's here from the Heart Gallery of Greater Houston. It used to be the Heart Gallery of Houston, and then they got the funding and were able to expand. But they were in existence and had been running their Heart Gallery, but not to the level that they are now. The same with the Heart Gallery of West Texas, had already been doing some of this work, and also in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So people had been kind of doing this, and the funding allowed them to really hire staff and amp it up to Heart Gallery 2.0, which we'll talk about. But everyone's in a different place, and it's been really fun, but it's also been great to see the creativity and ways that they connect with one another. Again, another shout out to Mary Houston. So many of our kids are placed in Houston, and she's been wonderful to utilize the photographers that she has in Region 6 to take pictures for a child that is living in Houston, but is from Midland, Odessa, and they need a picture for him. So those partnerships and collaborations have been wonderful, and we've loved doing that. And we started our metrics in January, and really, I will say it really is closer to probably April or May for some of our regions, because they just were starting out. I mean, yeah, El Paso was starting from scratch, and a lot of them were really starting from scratch. So they had to get volunteer photographers, set up the referral system. So these numbers are fantastic for the amount of few months that we were able to do it. 515 youth were featured in the Heart Gallery programs across the state. We had 742 exhibits, so multiple pictures in each of them. So in the thousands of pictures exhibited. And then 201 children, which is 40% of those that were featured, were removed because they were placed in an adoptive home. All of those are really exciting. And I can't even remember, we had something like, I don't know, 7,400 community engagement events with over 20,000 people, or 200,000. I don't know. I wrote that down on a separate slide, and I forgot to bring the notes, but we just had a lot of community engagement, and we always know that that's kind of the goal this year. We love that 201 number. We're never going to say that, oh, the child was adopted because of the Heart Gallery. I mean, we know in some cases children are adopted because someone saw them on the Heart Gallery, but more than anything, we just want to engage the community in taking that next step. And they might not foster or adopt, but they might babysit, they might take a meal to someone who did. So really that engagement piece is always so important to us, and getting that first step in and really informing the community and how we're informing them and what we're saying about the child welfare system is all very important in the work that we've been doing. So those numbers and the 816,000 that we saw go to the website, those are big numbers for us, because that's people getting engaged in our community. So Heart Gallery 2.0, you're going to hear a lot about this. And I think, I don't know, we called it Robust Heart Galleries, Heart Gallery Reimagined. And we finally just said, okay, just call it what it is. It's Heart Gallery 2.0. So as I mentioned, everybody had been, a lot of people had been kind of in this space, but we wanted to amp it up. And we're going to go into a lot more about the consent and things. But I think at the heart of all of this is the child center, and having the child more involved in their adoption journey. And so all of the things on a 2.0, we'll go into a little bit more detail, but it's really exciting to look at not only taking what was an idea that was working in Central Texas, but realizing that there's so much more that we can do. And I will tell you that so much of what Heart Gallery 2.0 is now is just absolutely grown. What we originally thought for the Heart Gallery is a tiny little seed in what it now is because of feedback from people with lived experience, feedback from people at UT with experienced caseworkers, just all people that are in the space letting us know of different ways to do this have developed. So, you know, it'll be 2.0, 3.0, what's after 2.0, 2.01, I don't know, but it'll continue to grow as the program grows. So we're excited about that. And the next slide is it will be my last slide, the community engagement and sustainability. One of the things is the Heart Gallery program, you know, we funded the Heart Galleries with seed money, and we call it seed money because it's not going to maintain itself. Their goal is to become self-sustaining. And it's really important to do that for Heart Gallery programs because you want to be out in the community. You want to be having parties, home parties and events and different things and going and speaking at church groups or different kinds of groups because we want to engage the community in this, even if it's just a volunteer or someone to help us find other venues. We need to engage the community to learn more about this, but go side to side with that. Some of them, we want monetary support as well. So we want people to not only engage in ways to take the next step, great, to volunteer, great, make a monetary donation, fantastic. But the goal is getting the word out. And at the end of the day, making the Heart Gallery self-sustaining in their region and having funding focused solely on the post-adopt work. And a lot of this, even pre-adoption, better preparing families for adoption, and then staying with them through the adoption process and beyond. So the sustainability piece is a really big focus for all of the Heart Galleries this year, and we're helping them with that and also hoping to do a lot of statewide efforts in making sure that that all happens. And Kara, do you want to add anything to that piece of it? Because I know you're doing a big part of that as well.
No, I think you've covered it. Thank you.
Awesome. And I apologize to everybody. I'm going to pass this over to Erica, and I am catching a flight, Vanessa and Renee, to you guys to El Paso this afternoon. So I'm going to be dashing off this call, but thank you all for being here today. And I'll pass it over to Erica to talk about consent. Or I guess, no, sorry, yeah, child-centered.
Yes. Thanks, Corey. So moving into child-centered recruitment. So that, of course, means placing the child, their unique thoughts, feelings, perspective, and decision-making at the heart of everything that we do and ensuring that their voice guides our approach. So this year, the Heart Gallery has embodied this through training Heart Gallery staff and volunteers to write strengths-based narratives that tells a child's story with dignity and respect. We've also hosted the Words Matter webinar where we've educated the child welfare community on inclusive adoption language to honor the child and family's identity. We've created consent guidance that is helping child welfare workers navigate meaningful consent conversations with children about being featured in the Heart Gallery, supporting their decision-making, making sure that this is that they're fully informed about the process and that this is something that they want to participate in. And our ultimate goal through all of this is to ensure that we're actively engaging youth in their adoption journey, that we are respecting their autonomy, and that we're making them central to the process, since, of course, this is all about them. Now, child-centered recruitment is just one part of our commitment to supporting youth and families on this journey. So this year, we've also focused on providing ongoing educational and resource support. And so we have made sure that we are addressing unmet needs and that we are avoiding duplication. We are wanting to bridge gaps in services and resources. So not putting things out there that are already out there, but actually meeting needs of what is being expressed by the community professionals, caregivers of what is needed. And of course, centering youth through trauma-informed and community-driven practices. We are also providing ongoing support, and this has been done through developing resources like our post-permanency resource toolkit And this is a centralized resource that is on the Heart Galleries of Texas website, and it consolidates the trainings, the interventions, and the events that are available in each region. So it makes it easier for families and professionals to access the support that they need, no matter where they are in the process. And then moving into our training accomplishments this year and how those have supported our mission. So we have completed 6 webinars where we've had 191 attendees, and we've shared expertise and fostered collaboration across the child welfare community through those webinars. We've had 9 professional trainings where we have equipped child welfare professionals with knowledge and tools to enhance their practice. We've had 11 caregiver trainings where we've supported caregivers with knowledge to navigate the adoption journey. And this includes 7 adoption what to expect trainings where caregivers have been provided an overview of the adoption process. They've been given practical strategies to support children and families as well. And we've had our 12 Heart Gallery staff and volunteer trainings, and that is our engaging with youth and foster care training, where staff and volunteers have learned how to build rapport with youth through empathy. And then we've had that strengths-based narratives training where they've learned to write those strengths-based narratives for the Heart Gallery. We have also had 5 work groups, and those are each focused on enhancing child welfare practices for youth, caregivers, the professionals, of course, and the community.
Okay, so based on all this information, we realized that as we were looking to, as I mentioned earlier, provide those post-permanency supports for those families after they've gone through the journey, we didn't want to sit here in Austin and act like we knew what was going to be best for the regions, the families, and the communities. So we worked together to create a post-permanency needs assessment that was sent out in February of this year to ask the people who have assumed permanency of children from the foster care system what they were needing after the state had stepped out of their lives and after they were ineligible for other of the resources that were available, or they didn't have any funding streams available. It was super, super fascinating. We had 388 caregivers who responded to this survey. And a lot of these questions were very qualitative and open-ended. And we found that a lot of the caregivers who were responding were super grateful for the opportunity to have their voice heard, and offered us a lot of really, really rich data and information outside of just the quantitative numbers that we were able to collect. We also had 175 service providers complete the service, and this were people who were either directly providing post-adopt services within their agency. It included the post-permanency or the post-adopt contracted service providers from DFPS that the families get after they have consummated their adoptions from DFPS, as well as bridge and resource organizations. And there were a lot of varying types of professionals and caregivers that responded to the survey, and these are the top identified needs that came out of this. Obviously, this should be a shock to absolutely no one. Everyone was seeking expanded mental health services, and a lot of this was also including mental health services that had components of trauma-informed responsiveness and trauma-informed care built into them, understanding that a lot of times families could maybe have access to the mental health service, but what they were finding is that the providers who were saying that they were trauma-informed were not in fact trauma-informed. I always use this anecdotal evidence that I was in Region 11 visiting with some of their post-adopt organizations and resource organizations that were providing some of these services. And there was an adoptive parent there who has a 17-year-old. And in the Valley, she went to 4 trauma therapists that all said, yes, we specialize in trauma. We will see your teenager. And after the intake appointment with this teenager, this young adult, all of the therapists said, oh, basically your trauma is too trauma-y for our abilities. So you're going to have to find a different therapist. So we know that that is an additional harm that is, happening to this child post-adoption. And they are, in addition to experiencing all of the things that they experienced through their foster care journey and their adoption journey, are now being told that they are once again too much, or that they don't have the resources available to serve them effectively. So in addition to access to general services, it was also quality services as well as non-traditional therapeutic services. Sometimes teenagers and kids are not ready for talk therapy, and there are a lot of alternative modalities that are out there that are really successful, like equine therapy or art therapy or music therapy, and those are inaccessible to most of those families. We also, number two is a big one, right? Respite, childcare, and camps. We kind of lumped it all into one, but across the board, those were general needs that families who have assumed permanency still sometimes are living not near other relatives, or they have kind of burned bridges with all their friends and families because they don't maybe have the understanding or the tools necessary to be successful childcare or respite care providers. And so they are just kind of in the ether with no support. We were on a conversation with a phone call with a gentleman who was interested in learning more about the post-adopts services. I can't remember what region he was in, and I hadn't met him before, and he was seeing if his organization might be a good fit for it. And he was camera off in the passenger seat driving home from an emergency gallbladder surgery where I had said, oh, well, if example, you had adoptive children and you needed respite care. And he actually came off mute and said, we do have adoptive children and I did need respite care. So we have families that are experiencing this all across the state in many ways, shapes, and forms. And we want to be able to meet these needs where we can. We also know that financial assistance and tangible support are things that are never going away. When you adopt a child from the foster care system at 2, you might not be thinking about what your financial situation looks like when they're 12 or what their unanticipated needs look like when they are 12. So families are saying they need some help with that. And then finally, one of the things that was really interesting to us was just general access to information. Families out there are not regretting their decisions, but they are feeling kind of like they are islands onto themselves and they are isolated. And one of the things that we did ask when we did this needs assessment was the familiarity with their post-adopt contracted provider. And one of the things that I thought was most interesting about this data, nothing that I've said so far is shocking to anyone who's in this space, but we found that only 58% of caregivers could correctly identify who their post-adopt contracted service provider was. And even more shocking, it was only 41% of the providers. So that means there are, of all of these people who, 563 participants, not even half of those service providers in the region could tell you who to go to for post-permanency and post-adoption supports. And this is not because the post-permanency or post-adopt contracted service providers are doing anything they're not doing anything wrong. They're not missing anything. It's just that it's so convoluted and such an intricate and challenging time with a lot of things going on in life that a lot of things are falling through the cracks. And when you've been working with a CPA and then you have a caseworker and then all of a sudden you have this different third-party person with a different organization providing this different set of services that you got on a flyer one time, it's not something that is ingrained in the community or into the resource kit that you are taking with you in your day-to-day. And so that's one of the things that as we are addressing all of these top identified needs, we're also working to ensure that with this post-permanency aspect of Heart Galleries, that we are integrating that into the Heart Galleries and into the communities to ensure that these communities are the hubs for the resources that are available for them. So what we did with this information is that we infused the communities with some funding to meet their needs. Looking at this map, we had $3.4 million that ran through the 11 regional heart galleries, as well as we had a couple of individual statewide providers that just directly contracted with the Alliance to get some funding because they're serving the entire state instead of a region. And what we did is we just kind of ensured that all of the regions were using the things that we learned from the needs assessment to fill gaps in services. So we weren't really trying to make any duplication of services. We weren't really trying to build anything new. We know that there are incredible organizations all across the state of Texas that are doing really, really incredible work that either didn't have the capacity to include post-permanency and post-adoption families or didn't think about including post-permanency and post-adopt families. I was in North Texas a couple weeks ago and was with a really, really fantastic group up there. And they asked for really tangible steps that they could do to kind of utilize some of this knowledge. And one of the things that we had learned as we were meeting with the organizations across Texas is that a lot of the services that are available are very specific for foster families only, but very easy for them to then include post-permanency and post-adopt families as well. So if you're having a support group for children in the home that are not biological, a lot of times they would just be geared to the foster family. Whereas if you are also an adoptive family, it's really easy to invite them to be a part of a support group or a community activity or some way that they can feel connected to this community and less isolated after that experience. So if you want a breakdown of all of the organizations, we have that. This is just a really beautiful graphic that ties in the Heart Gallery as well as the funding. And if you look beneath each one of the dollar signs, it says exactly the types of things that this funding is going to be utilized for. So we've got therapy, respite, basic needs. It's all tying back into that needs assessment. So just for a little bit of numbers that exist across here, we did fund 42 organizations across Texas that did include some regional heart galleries who are stepping up to meet some of the gaps in services that no one applied for in their region. What we are really, really focusing on here is that these are collaboration and these are filling gaps, right? We're not duplicating services. We are not recreating any wheels out there. We are working within the communities to do grassroots, organizational, community-driven, community building activities to meet the needs of the families post-permanency and post-adoption. This does include the regional heart galleries, like I said, as well as 2 of the 3 statewide post-adoption contracted service providers. We really talked through them and what they felt like they could do if we found organizations to kind of help offload some of their weight. We know that they are perpetually out of funding and that they have not had a funding restructure in many, many years. And in addition to that, they are funded for a set number of families per year. And each year that does not increase to include the new families who are adopting from the foster care system. It just includes the singular set of families adopting from the foster care system that year. So they are grossly underfunded. They also know the landscape really, really well. So it was really critical for us that we integrate them into all of our conversations, as well as ensure that they had a spot at the table with us and that they were giving us best practice ideas and that we were seeing what we could do to help simultaneously meet their needs while meeting the needs of the families. Again, like we said, this is meeting the needs of the top addressed concern from the needs assessment. This is, we have identified, we are just really putting Band-Aids on things that are much larger than Band-Aids right now, but this is work that's happening simultaneously while on the back end. We're working with the University of Texas, the Texas Alliance of Child and Family Services, the legislature, all of our partner organizations to help make this a much larger issue within the ledge and within DFPS so that everyone is on the same page and understands that once the gavel strikes and the family is assumed conservatorship permanently of that child, that they just don't need any more help. And that's a really big misconception. So while we are doing this work, we are simultaneously working on the back end to change the perception and understanding of what families need once permanency has been achieved. So looking forward, one of the things that we want to do while working through this post-permanency model is ensure that the heart galleries have the opportunity for long-term self-sustainability. As we move through these processes, originally about 60% of the funds from the legislature went to standing up heart galleries and about 40% went to post-permanency and post-adoption. And next year that number is going to flip-flop. So we will be working with heart galleries to develop sustainability so that they can have slightly less of their funds integrated into the heart gallery stand-up and maintenance, and then more of the funds will be integrated into the post-permanency and post-adoption supports, understanding that this is going to involve the community partners, all of the bridge and resource organizations, and really working together as a community to continue to identify, assess, and address the needs of the families. We really want the Heart Galleries of Texas to be a go-to place for adoption and community. We want this to be for all families in their permanency journey, whether they are seeing a Heart Gallery child on the website and thinking about taking those next steps and attending an information session, to 10 years after they've adopted and they have a teenager who's entering puberty and is reassessing and readdressing all of their experiences up until this point. So we don't really license families or prepare children for adoption, but we are working really hard to connect the stakeholders and the families with vital support, ensuring that the right resources and partnerships are in place to create the lasting families. And any of you who are fortunate to attend our November 19th event, have a really beautiful video. And we are going to take time right now to show you this video, which really kind of encapsulates what we are hoping for and looking to achieve with Heart Galleries of Texas.
I don't know whose idea it was in my family to introduce me to everybody at the same time, but it was so overwhelming. I was thinking, this is a bad idea walking in. And I was so shocked by how much I felt instantly at ease, instantly comforted. My papa is the funniest man ever and knows how to warm you right up to him. He comes across as kind of got together, hard guy, and then he is the biggest teddy bear ever. So of course I won him over and had him crying at the lunch table within an hour. And so I remember sitting at that table with him and him going, I already can't picture my life without you in it. And I have, again, never felt that sense of acceptance before. Just feeling this complete, like I didn't do anything to earn it, which comes along with, I can't do anything to lose it. I spent my teenage years in foster care and knew nothing about the Heart Gallery or even what adoption was until I was 14. When I was in foster care, I just didn't even have an ability to think about my future. As far as I could go was what my caseworker would tell me, which is that I was aging out. I was gonna be on my own and outside of foster care when I turned 18. By that point, my biological family had openly and verbally rejected me, and so I knew it wasn't an option for me to have a relationship with them anymore. So I legitimately just couldn't process what life would look like after foster care. My caseworker, actually it was a random thing, she was switching over to the adoption unit and wasn't going to be my caseworker anymore. And I had never experienced the caseworker switch yet. So I just was like, no, you can't leave me. And she said, well then come with me and come, enter the adoption unit, which I was like, what is that? And she said, there's actually a deal where we'll take a picture of you, I'll make sure you're comfortable, I'll be there with you, and then people will see it and hopefully pick to adopt you. And I just thought that was the craziest thing. She gave me a little bit of time to think about it, and I ended up doing it and got adopted within maybe 10 months from when I took my picture to when I was officially adopted. So here I come into this family unit that's super close. We all went to the same church together. We all lived in Lubbock. It was a really beautiful thing for me to come into that. I feel like it was exactly where the Lord needed me to be because I got the time I needed to be almost an only child in that family and really learn what true safety looked like. Really learn how to be wholeheartedly accepted for who I was exactly as I was because I'd never experienced that. I mean, it was the complete opposite of my childhood.
The role that Heart Galleries of Texas played in my brother and my life was that we were able to show ourselves to the world and show that, we were wonderful kids and that all we needed was a family in that moment. I truly believe that Heart Galleries was a big reason as to why we were adopted and to why we got into the family that we did, because just thinking about it, a pair of siblings who are older, 13 and 9, the probability of us being adopted together is not very high, but because of Heart Galleries of Texas, they found the perfect family for us.
The Heart Gallery had a tremendous positive impact on our life. As a sibling group, we were able to stay together. Our photos were shown as us as a sibling group. They were looking for families who want to adopt 4 children who are teenagers. I was 13, my brother was 12, and my sisters were 1 month away from turning 15. Because of Heart Gallery, they found families who were interested in that type of dynamic. My mom was just like, I think we want to adopt. And so she got home and started looking at the Heart Gallery online. And when my dad arrived home, he was asking what they were up to. And he saw our photo and said, what about these 4? And from there, they put in their interest and we met with them and it was amazing. It was an immediate match, and usually there's 6 months of going back and forth, but we moved in with them pretty quickly. And from that day, my dad said, like, you are our children. We were still connected to our biological family, our uncle, which is my biological dad's brother, in San Angelo. We've always gone, our caseworker would take us to Thanksgiving, Easter, every year while we were still in care. So that was a question that we had. We were like, would families still allow us to see our biological family? And their answer was, as long as they're a positive influence in your life, they will always be allowed in your life. And we're like, oh, that's easy, because our Ethiopian, he is like the biggest positive impact role model for us, our hero. So our sisters are about to turn 15, and in the culture, that's their quinceañera. My mom had no idea what a quinceañera was. We moved in June. On July 23rd, they're turning 15. Their wedding anniversary is August 16th. And they actually had their quinceañera on August 16th. And my mom had to learn about the dresses. And what was so beautiful was my biological grandmother from Mexico was visiting the US for the first time. And she was able to attend the quinceañera. My Tio Benny, my Tia Patty, all of my family, my cousins, were able to attend this quinceañera at their home, and it was so beautiful. That is one of my fondest memories. I think having that early on just showed us how dedicated they were to learn about our culture, to learn about, okay, what can we do to make sure that you guys still feel a part of your culture? What can we do to help that? And the beautiful thing about adoption is that our parents didn't stop being our parents after we turned 18. And we had that incredible bond. And my mom said, well, what if your Tio Benny goes with us to Mexico to see your dad and your family, your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, your cousins? And that spring break, we went to Mexico. And what's so beautiful is I have a picture of my adoptive parents, who I call my parents, and my biological dad, and they're hugging and embracing. And I just think that family and that commitment was so beautiful.
I experienced in school, especially prior to being adopted, a lot of times where it was almost like a lot of excuses for where I was at. So oh, he has a really hard life, or oh, he's going through this. And so there was almost an excuse of me not being the best that I could be. Even though I do believe that I tried really hard at everything I did, I think there were a lot of times where people could make excuses. And what my parents did is they said they knew I could do wonderful things, and they knew that I could do the things that I had in mind and the goals that I had. I remember there was a teacher where I forgot to write a paper sometime in high school, and so I really rushed. I did it right before in the lunch before class, and a day later, I get a 100, I take it home, I put it on my desk, I forget about it. My mom passes that paper and she reads it, and the next day I'm at the school and she's telling him hey, he does not deserve a 100. I know my son can do better, and I think to this day he still says that my mom's the only person to ever come in and ask for a lower grade for their kid. And so that's the kind of parents I have, to where they know my potential and they know what we can do, and they're always gonna press us towards that. I remember pretty shortly after I was adopted, there were some times where we were at school and my parents were big into do your best, do your best. Now, whether my best meant my C in chemistry or my A's in English, they were a supporter of that as long as I was doing my best. And I can say that my parents have really built in me a resilience and the ability to always put my best foot forward. As well with my story, I know that in my career and in my field, I can relate to many kids. I can say that I've been through things in my life where I know for a fact that education was gonna get me out. I am an assistant principal for Austin ISD at Burnett Middle School, and it is exciting to be able to be a part of this, because prior to being adopted, I don't think being an assistant principal or working in a school was ever an idea that was crossing my mind. But I know that through the process of adoption, confidence grew. I was able to eventually go into getting my undergraduate degree at Texas Tech, but also to move on to get 2 master's degrees, one of them being at the University of Texas. And so currently using that master's to be an assistant principal with the hopes of eventually being a principal. My dream is to have the biggest impact that I can on the education system to help more and more kids that might have possibly been in my situation.
So today I work with teenagers who age out of foster care. My nonprofit is called Reclaimed 43. It's a mentor program mentoring them and providing community for after they turn 18 until they're 25. So the goal of it is really to provide them that same access to community and unconditional love that I got through adoption. So these are for the kids that adoption's no longer an option. I want to give them that hope that there's still an option for them to find family. They can still choose, just like I've learned, they can choose who their family is. And I want to use my story to bring them hope too.
Working with kids, they always tell me they want a childhood. That's the biggest thing. They're saying, but June, I'm already a teenager, my childhood is almost over. And what parents can do that are wanting to adopt is allow kiddos to be kids. That was something that my parents gifted to us, and we had a beautiful childhood from the time I was 13 onwards. We would go to the lake on the weekends, we would go on family vacations every year, and I think that's so important that it's not too late to give these kids a childhood that they deserve. And the Heart Gallery is an amazing program to get that foot in the door and to start that journey. Family to me is having people that you can lean on, that you can call for support, that you can be vulnerable with. It was really important for me that as a sibling group, we remained a sibling group, we were adopted as a sibling group, we were raised together, and that we have one another to lean on, and that we have our parents who really support and have created that strong foundation. Family does not have to be blood. I think it's what makes like the joy that's in the home, that's in that relationship, in those bonds, is really what to me makes a family.
Family to me means that someone who is there to stabilize and to always be there. I know that my mom and dad are people that I can constantly be in touch with, constantly get advice from, constantly be able to speak to when there are hard times. And my mom and dad have been that when I was a kid, and they've been that now, even today. And I think they've been a great example of what family should mean for me with my family, with my wife and my kid. My advice to someone who's considering adopting is talk to someone, see what you can find. I think you'd be surprised when you reach out to someone how much they're willing to share. And just have an understanding that there are kids here who absolutely have that need, and you can be one of the greatest things that happen in their life.
Now I have my own family. I have 3 kiddos. My oldest, her name is Clara Grace, she's 7, and then I have a 4-year-old boy, Anderson Reed, and a 2-year-old boy, David. And they are the best thing ever. And when I talk about finding healing from my childhood, man, they do something every day that causes me to just be so thankful for where God has led me. There's lots of little moments where I think about how different our lives are, and I'm thankful that they get to experience something different than what I had. I get to see those chains being broken, those cycles being stopped. It's just been the coolest thing getting to see my kids learn what that same acceptance feels like. It's very redemptive, it's very full circle to know I'm bringing you into a world that's so different than the world I was brought into. And I get to do that because of who God brought into my life through the Heart Gallery. Now they get to be a part of their lives too. And so I love getting to see my kids feel that same sense of acceptance and just unconditional love that I always wanted as a child but didn't get. So now seeing it in them every time just heals my heart over every time that I see that happen. I'm one of those people that I believe the cliche that family is who you choose. And so, you know, that was the same when my family saw my picture and my mom said, where is she gonna go when she's in college and it's Christmas? She very literally chose me. And so in some ways I feel like it's easy for me to really believe that family's who you choose. It was hard. It was a hard road for me to figure out what family meant. And I think that going through the Heart Gallery and having it be such a real choice helps me have some autonomy and feel empowered in who I get to choose to be my family today.
So that wraps up the bulk of kind of what we've spent the past year doing, laying a lot of groundwork on this project and preparing for the post-op work in the coming year. And one of the things that we're really going to be focusing on in the coming year is actually telling the story of Heart Galleries a little bit more. We'll be embarking on an ad campaign and some other earned media opportunities that help us reach prospective adoptive families and also current adopted families so that they know, that Heart Galleries exist and that that's a place where you can connect with children. And then also that we are there for families throughout the adoption journey, through the process and beyond, and that we have services and supports available after that. So hopefully you will be seeing Heart Gallery everywhere in the coming year. And we are just really, really proud of all of the work that all of our galleries across the state has done. It's been tremendous progress in a very short amount of time. So we are just grateful that you came to listen to our story today and learn more about what we're doing. And I don't know if anyone has any questions before Cassandra handles our closing. Okay. Thank you.